questions? If not, I think we can quickly move on. But if you have any other question, you can type in real quickly, but we can quickly move on to our next speaker, who will be talking about the new face of parenting in raising digital natives. The new face of parenting in raising digital natives. You see children, I mean, young people these days oftentimes are like this. They're walking on the streets, they're at the dinner table, everywhere. So they are the digital natives. So what is the new face of parenting in raising this tribe of people? And our next speaker is Foluso Gbadamosi, who's a business leader who provides solutions to business problems and challenges using technology. And in her current role as a director of business process and technology at Prime Atlantic Group, she's responsible for strategic technology leadership. And she has cross-functional experience across various industries, including telecommunications, FMCG, financial services, and oil and gas. And she has worked as a technology specialist in the United States and has held management leadership roles at Procter & Gamble, Monarch Communications Limited, and IGI Insurance. She has a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Pittsburgh and a master's degree in information system technology from George Washington University. And Foluso is also a certified management consultant, holds a certificate from the Yale CEO College, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and a board-ready certificate from the IE Business School. She's married with 2 children and currently resides in Lagos, Nigeria. Hi, Foluso, how are you? I'm sure I spotted her a moment ago. Okay, there she is, but her mic is muted. Okay, there she is. Her mic is muted.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, I'm having some connectivity issues. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure to be here. If for any reason my connection is choppy, can somebody please just let me know? Because I think I'm currently having some weird connectivity issues. Okay, so thank you for the introduction, Ronke. So I'm going to
just jump. You're breaking up somewhat here.
Am I still breaking up?
Well, I can hear you.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing with you all about parenting in the digital age from the perspective of, that's exactly, parenting in the digital age. So let me just start my slides. Let me know if you can see my slides, please. Can you see my slides? Great. Yeah. Okay, so this has been very, 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 very interesting so far. I have been learning and relearning as well as a parent, and I hope that we all are as well. Okay, so I'm going to start with the definitions because most of us here fall into one of these two. We're either a digital immigrant or we're a digital native. And who or what is a digital immigrant? Anybody that was born before the 1980s is known as a digital immigrant. And that is because you were born before the widespread use of digital technology, right? So if you were born before the 80s here, you are what we call a digital immigrant. Now, who is a digital native? All your children are all digital natives, right? So somebody who was born and raised in the digital age, they have been interacting with tech since they were born, since they were children. And so they are extremely comfortable with it. So the younger millennial generation, Generation Z, they are all considered to be digital natives. Now, I have an image here that just came up on the screen, which kind of, does a little comparison between the immigrants and the natives. So like I already mentioned, immigrants are typically born before the 1980s, while the natives are born after that. Some of you are going to really find this quite funny, and it's going to resonate with you because there are little things here that the immigrants and natives do very, very differently. So immigrants typically value proper English, they don't always like to use slang. So there are some text messages that your children or the natives amongst us might send to you that give you a headache. Instead of saying, how are you, A-R-E-Y-O-U, they use all the different slangs, instead of saying because, they'll say CZ and things of that nature. So the natives typically use a lot of shorthand because they are very, very used to communicating with technology. So they type in a lot of shorthand, unlike the immigrants who, have been used to proper English. Immigrants would typically prefer to print out a document and read on a device. And the natives, they socialize better online and they're typically less bold in person. So you see that there's a lot of, young people that when you see them on Twitter or when you read their Twitter or you see their Instagram, they are so bold. Meanwhile, once you see them in person, you're like, is this the same person, you know, that was so bold? Because they are so used to socializing online. They're really, really comfortable with it. And they might actually be introverts, but once they're online, they're on fire. Immigrants typically channel mental capacity towards completing one or two major tasks before moving to another. The natives, you know, they love to multitask. Multitasking for them is a lifestyle. They tend to have a shorter attention span. Immigrants can be more fearful about using technology. The natives are constantly connected, you know, and just, you know, all that good stuff. Natives also consult the internet first for information. How many of us here have children who literally anything they are going on Google? You know, they're going on Google, they're telling you that this is what Google says, and you're looking at them like, okay, that is the real deal. You know, many of us, when we were in school, we had to go to the library, right? As in, if you wanted to write a paper or do research, you have to go to the physical library and look through all the different alphabets, you know, to find the book that you were looking for. These guys do not have to do that. All they need to do is get on Google, and all the information that they need is right at their fingertips, right? So those are the core differences between the immigrants and the natives. Obviously, I mean, this is, you know, just general. So there are some immigrants that might not fall within this kind of explanation, but this is typically the general differences between the two. Alrighty, let me go to my next slide. Okay, so what are the realities, right? As parents, what are the realities of parenting natives, digital natives? I know that we all know, but let's just kind of, you know, walk through it. So there's serious generational differences. The way that we were raised and the way that we're raising our children, honestly, we cannot do it the same way. We just cannot afford to do it the same way. And not because there was anything necessarily wrong with how you were raised, but because your children were born into the digital age. So what they have exposure to, what they see, what they know, the kind of information that they get coming at them per second is so much more than you ever got, even if you were the most exposed person in the world, because of the internet, right? So we have serious generational differences. So we have obviously the behavioral differences that we've spoken about, the thinking, even the way that you process information and the way that your children process it is quite different. So you might be looking for something and you're actually maybe going to call around, ask people. Your children go directly onto the internet and Google it. You know, they're not going to spend a lot of time and energy asking questions. They're just going to go on Google. Peer pressure is another huge one. The way that you and I experience peer pressure is very different from how our children are experiencing peer pressure. They are experiencing peer pressure from social media. They are experiencing, you know, cyberbullying. I mean, there's so much that they are experiencing that I actually often feel bad for them because they have so much. Obviously, they have a lot available to them, but they also have a lot that they have to contend with, you know, compared to what we had to contend with when we were children. The second thing is lack of understanding. Obviously, even, you know, some of us had lack of understanding issues with our parents, you know, just from a generational perspective. But this is even more so now because of technology, because a lot of parents do not understand technology. A lot of parents don't even want to understand technology. You know, they don't want to understand Twitter and social media. So there's a real lack of understanding in what the children are even feeling, saying, thinking, or going through. The third thing is the power of the internet and technology, which obviously covers every single thing, right? The internet and technology are so powerful. I mean, they are parenting our children. I know that one of the speakers earlier had mentioned about how they're learning so much online, more so than we even know. So sometimes you think, oh, I've not taught them that, so they won't know it. No, they actually do. There's so much more than they know than you do. In fact, I like what the previous speaker was saying about even the you know, cartoons that they're watching and how much they are learning from video games and cartoons that we don't realize that they're actually learning. You know, all those subliminal messages, all those things that we probably don't think are a big deal, but they're actually learning quite a lot. The fourth thing is adapting to technology. So your children naturally adapt to technology. You know, some of them, it's almost like when they're born with an iPad in their hands, you know, when they're born with the phone in their hands, they know how to operate the gadgets. Meanwhile, you are still struggling. You know, you're trying to figure out what to do with a gadget, and your 4-year-old or your 3-year-old, you know, is working the gadget like a pro. And you're looking at them like, you know, how do you know how to do that? But it's just because they were born into the time. You know what I mean? Like, that's all it's about. So they adapt to it so much easier than we did. The last thing is disruption and change. Parents, ladies and gentlemen, like it or not, parenting has been disrupted. We have to change. So we cannot do things how they've always been done because we're living in a very, 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 very different time. And so that disruption and that change is something that we have to adapt to. Obviously, you're still going to discipline your kids. You're still going to, do the right things concerning them, but you might not be able to do it the way that it was done for you, making the assumption that what you knew at age 7 is what your daughter or your son knows at age 7, or what you knew at age 10 is what they knew. You cannot make that assumption. You just have to understand that you are living in a completely different time. All right? Okay, so I have some graphics here that I found so funny that I just felt like I had to share them. So this dad is, he's sitting on the sofa, he's reading his newspaper, saying to his daughter, "Hi, sweetie, how was school today?" And she says, "You can read all about it on my blog, Dad." Because you know that a lot of these children, they go and, they literally like download how they are feeling, onto a post online, whether it's a Twitter rant, or it's a blog or whatever. But the point is that this is how they operate now. So whereas the father wants to have a discussion, she's like, "Oh, I've already typed it up. Why don't you just go and check it out, on my blog?" The next one I found funny as well was, so the teacher is asking this child, "Shouldn't you be in class?" And he says, "There's no room, so I'm watching a webcast on my smartphone." Now, all of us that have been in the world during this pandemic know that all our children have actually been doing virtual learning. So this is actually a reality, right? Because they are watching webcasts, they are watching their classes, they are going for, courses and trainings or whatever it is on their smartphone. In fact, I was talking to my daughters today about signing them up for Vacation Bible School, which is online, and they were whining and complaining, and I went ahead and I signed them up anyway. And I told my older daughter that I was going to email her the Zoom link that they had sent. So the reality of our children attending webcasts, attending things online, on Zoom, on Teams, whatever it is reality. My 5-year-old daughter said to my older daughter the other day, who was complaining about, she hopes that Christmas this year is going to be, it's not going to be boring because of this pandemic. She's hoping and praying that the pandemic would have calmed down. And my 5-year-old daughter says to her, "If it hasn't calmed down, we'll just do it on Teams." And I was like, oh my goodness, like, did she really just say that? But that's her reality. She's looking at her like, we'll be doing birthday party on Zoom and Teams. We'll be doing class on Zoom and Teams. And so if Christmas is pandemic Christmas, no problem. We'll do it on Teams. You know what I mean? And that's a 5-year-old girl. You know what I mean? So we are living in this, this is not the future anymore, guys. The future is here with us. So we have to get with the program. So if you haven't gotten Fola's book, please make sure that you get it. It's a really educational book. So some of these statistics, actually all of these statistics I actually got from the book. And I felt like I should kind of just talk through them because it's quite important to, kind of just set the context for the parents that might still not feel like, oh, you know what, this is a reality. So 62% of teenagers admit to using their cell phone past bedtime. Yeah. So your children, you think, are sleeping. You haven't turned off the internet, or you don't even have any security on your internet. Your kids are surfing. They are chatting with their friends. They are video calling. They are on WhatsApp groups and so on and so forth. 77% admit to texting and tweeting when they should be asleep. Yeah, when they should be sleeping. And you are probably already asleep. 67% of teachers find that smartphones distract today's teenagers most of the time. Only 15% of parents know their kids' online habits. 44% of teens admitted they'd watch something online their parents wouldn't approve of. Teens say texting is their number one driver distraction and it's causing accidents. So, even beyond the harm of the internet and all that, it's even just the fact that a lot of children, even adults, let's be honest, but more so them, they're driving, they're texting, they're driving, they're chatting, they're driving, they're having video calls. So there's so many things that we need to address. 90% of children between ages 8 to 16 have seen online porn. The largest group of porn consumers are ages 12 to 17. This shocked me as well. Girls than boys are more susceptible to cyberbullying. 70% of children 7 to 18 have accidentally encountered online porn online while trying to do a search for their homework. I think Fola addressed that during her session, and just so on and so forth. There's so much that they are contending with, because you have to understand also that a lot of times it's not voluntarily that they get into these things, it's by accident. It's some random website. Sometimes even the games, sometimes your children are playing a game and something pops up and you're like, this is so inappropriate for children. Why is this popping up? But this is what they have to face and deal with. So when we're parenting them, we should not always think, oh, they went looking for it. Sometimes these things actually come looking for them, even in the most innocent of, places. So what are some of the areas of concern, for us as parents? And there's quite a lot, but I try to just summarizing on this page. So really, for me, it's the 3 C's. It's the content, it's the contact, and it's the conduct. And I want us to think about this, for a range of child ages. So don't just think about it for your younger children or your older children. Just think about it like all through. Content, what are they looking at? Number 1. Number 2, what are they posting? Now, why is what they are posting important? I like to say that the internet never forgets. And it's not, I didn't come up with that. It's all over the internet because the internet actually doesn't forget. So your daughter or your son might post something, might post a comment, when he's 10 years old, or might post a picture and think, oh, I deleted it off of my Twitter or somewhere, so it's gone. But guess what? Somebody could have done a screenshot. There might be some site that picks up from the main site that has stored and cached it. And so it's not really gone from the internet. I'm sure that we've all heard about some of the children that apply to schools. The school admits them. The moment they go and Google these children and they see that the child has posted something that, is just, it's not nice, maybe it's a racial slur or something, they withdraw their school acceptance form, and this has happened to a lot of people, a lot of children, because when they were younger, they posted something, just, joking or playing. But as times are getting more and more, interesting and riddled with information, everybody gets Googled nowadays, whether you're an adult or you're a child. So when the schools go and research them and they see that they posted some funny things, they are not having it. So not only what they are looking at, but also what they are posting. So we also have to educate them about the importance of being responsible with what they post. Number 2 is contact. So who are they talking to online? Who are they chatting with? Some of them are making friends with people that are halfway across the world and we have no clue. So we also have to be very, very cognizant of this when we're talking to them, about being careful about who they're talking to. Then conduct. How do they appear online? That's part of what I covered under the posting. So when I Google you, or I Google me, or I Google my daughter or my son, how do they appear online? If somebody who doesn't know them does a search of them, what do they think about them based off of what they see? So some of them are posting on social media pages and think that it's not a big deal what they're posting, but it actually is a big deal and it goes a long way. And I believe that it's probably going to get a bit worse than it even already is, because nowadays, it's like privacy doesn't even exist. A lot of the children are on TikTok. We all don't know the reality, but there's so many security issues with TikTok. They are so happy, doing their fun videos and all that, but there are so many security issues with TikTok. Sometimes they might even be posting things there or doing videos there that, they shouldn't be. And they might think, oh, I deleted it, it's gone, but it's not really gone. So we have to talk to our children about the fact that the internet does not forget. So whatever you don't want people to think about you 20 years down the line, please don't post it. Yeah. So I'm going to share some tips for all of us as parents. So the first tip I have is, mommies and daddies, ladies and gentlemen, let us not be in denial. Let's deal with the elephant in the room. Technology is the elephant in the room. A lot of us don't want to discuss technology in and of itself. We don't want to make it into a thing, but it is a thing. A lot of them spend more time using technological devices than they do even interacting with us, their parents. So we cannot be in denial. We can't lie to ourselves. We must just deal with it. That's one. Second of all, please educate and equip yourself. I know a lot of parents are not technologically savvy and don't want to be, but there are many people nowadays who do train parents, who are educating parents on the kind of things that they need to know. So I always used to say this to a lot of people a few years ago, before my children even got older, where I would say, listen, if your children are on Twitter or on Instagram, I need you to be on Twitter and Instagram, and not to spy on them, but to understand how it works. So I don't want my children to be on a platform that I have no clue how it works, because I need to be able to explain to them what some of, the benefits and also the downsides of these platforms are. So please educate and equip yourself. I know a lot of you probably don't care to be on some of these platforms, but please, you need to at least understand how they work. Also, please seek help. If there's any area at all that you need help in when it comes to technology and your children, there are so many people now who are helping parents. There are so many of them. Fola is one of them, and I'm sure that she has a whole database of other people that we can go to for help. Seek the help that you need. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Don't be shy or say, oh, this Facebook thing, I don't know how it works. I am embarrassed. It's okay. You don't know how it works, but you need to understand how it works. Something else I've noticed is that a lot of the teenagers I know have 2 or 3 different accounts. So they have the accounts that mommies and daddies are on, aunties and uncles, people like me. Then they have their secret account, which is private, which has a very, very coded name. And I don't know. And that's where they post what they really want to post. So it's really about that balance, right? Where, you know what, it's okay. That's what they are doing now. That's the trend. So it's not for you to spy on them and stalk them, but you do need to let them understand the importance and the risks of some of the things that they might be thinking is okay to post. Because your friends are posting pictures where they are half naked does not mean that you should go and join them because you also want to appear a certain way. Because 20 years down the line, it's still going to be out there and you don't want to be that person, right? Last but not the least, is talk to your children, right? So I feel like no matter how young or old they are, please, please, please talk to them, gist with them, make it a fun conversation. If you can't do it, you know, find your sister, your brother, your friend, the person that you know is very down to earth and can have that conversation with them. Tell them everything about the realities of being online. Because while technology is great, it also has a lot of downsides, and we don't want our children to be caught in the traps of technology. So we have to be extremely honest with them and extremely blunt with them. So please speak to them. And once again, I'm going to keep going back to number 3, which is seek help. If you need any sort of help, there's so much help available these days. Please seek the help that you need. So this image is really showing us how we all connect, right? So your daughter or your son living in Lagos, you know, living in Abuja or wherever has access to the entire world because of this device here that is a phone, or maybe it's an iPad, or maybe it's a laptop. So when you think about your children, especially the young ones, giving them devices, please realize that sometimes it's like giving a child a car and saying, take the keys and drive, because you are giving them access to the World Wide Web. This is what they have. They have access to all the continents. They have access to all kinds of people. Now, how do you prevent this access? Because obviously, some of them have to use devices because of their age, you know, their education and all that. I have a few tips here. Number 1, set up family accounts. I know that for a lot of people, this you know, if you're not a technologically savvy person, some of these things might seem a bit intimidating, but they really aren't, because number 1, you can seek help. Number 2, Google is your friend, the same way as your children's friend, you know. Ask Google how to set up family accounts. I know that on Apple devices, even on Microsoft devices, they actually have the ability for the parents to be the ones that set up the account for the children. So your children's email addresses, everything comes under a family account. And so that way you can monitor what is going on. Very, 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 very important. Next of all is to have secure internet. Many of us have internet in our houses that our children have the passwords for. Obviously, when you've got older children, they have to have the passwords. But with your young children, please refrain from giving them the password. If they want internet access, let them bring their device to you and you put in the password for them. There's no reason for them to have all of the information, because they are probably going to, first of all, they'll probably give it to, you know, other people just for fun because they're children. Next of all, you are giving them access to the internet on all their devices, which you might not necessarily want them to be able to access on all their devices. Next of all is privacy settings. So there's many settings where you can actually write that, put in the settings that it is a child's account and not an adult's account. And what that does is that it limits certain types of information that comes up on that account. Screen time monitoring, which I think that the previous speaker also mentioned. Screen time monitoring is so important. And so for those parents that were asking about, you know, how much time for gaming is too long, blah, 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 you can just shut off their phones by doing screen time monitoring. You know, when they've been on it for 2 or 3 hours, it just doesn't allow them access it anymore. And it even notifies you. So if you want to extend the screen time, you would have to extend it from your own device. Last but not least is parental control app. So there's one called QU Studio, which I love. And ironically, I saw it in Fola's book as well. It's a great app. You see everything. They download something new, you see it. They access a new whatever it is, you see it. And this is really just to help you as well start knowing if they are going in a certain direction. So I know somebody who, thanks to QU Studio, was able to discover that her son had started Googling some strange words, because it will actually tell you when they're Googling words that are not children words or that are not, you know, family-friendly words. Like when they start Googling things that are a bit like, okay, a child shouldn't be Googling that. And because she got the notification, she was able to have a discussion with her son. Obviously, she didn't tell him that she saw it, you know, because obviously trust. But she then found out that, you know, he actually was going through some stuff and they had a very long discussion about it. So these things are also to help us parent our children better, because a lot of times, out of innocence, you know, they do get involved in certain things. So it's not something that we should shy away from. And QU Studio is actually a really, really easy app to download. It's quite straightforward. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
I feel like I froze. Oh, okay, great. Sorry, I thought that I froze. Yeah, it's pretty easy to use. And for a lot of these apps as well, if you go on YouTube and you search how to use it, there's always a video of somebody who has broken it down for people that are not tech savvy. So please don't shy away from researching these things. All right. So I think this is my last slide. I wanted to end with this by saying, let's not start by being paranoid, about our children. Let's start with trust, so let's trust them. Let's trust that, we've taught them the right things. Let's trust that we've exposed them to the right things. But at the same time, when it comes to technology usage, please create your rules. I can't create the rules for you. Fola can't do it for you. All we can do is advise you on what might be best. But you need to determine, okay, so at what time every day do you guys stop using your devices? You can't sleep if they've got phones and maybe they're still a bit younger. You cannot take your phone to bed. You can't take your iPod to bed. You can't take your iPad to bed. The internet goes off at this time. I'm not going to give you the password to the internet. If you need access to the internet, come to mommy or daddy. I'm going to put screen time. If you need to use the screen beyond that, you need to come and ask me. I won't let you download any apps without it coming to me first. They can't just buy apps as they like. Point is, you need to create rules. The same way that you create family rules, you need to create technology usage rules, because this is actually something that a lot of them spend so much time on that is extremely important. Now, for those that have smart TVs as well, you need to also understand that them using the smart TVs, also them using technology, because they have access to, YouTube and all sorts. So you must have rules around their usage and around their devices. It is extremely important. Lastly, you must have consequences when the rules are broken. So I trust you enough to let you do this, but if you break the rules, this is going to be the consequence. I have seized the iPad from my younger daughter so many times, sometimes 1 week, sometimes 2 weeks, because she broke a rule, and I'm not going to be sentimental. You broke the rule. You don't get to use the iPad for 1 whole week. I told you not to take it to your room. You took it to your room. You won't use it. And guess what? They actually behave because they are so obsessed, with those gadgets, that when you threaten to seize them, or you do seize them, they really do think about the consequences of their actions. So make sure that you're creating rules. I am not just being like a basic, what's there? Maybe it's just iPad. No, it's not just iPad. It's not just iPhone. Those are powerful devices that expose your children to the whole entire world. And so please don't make assumptions. Don't assume that your children know what is right from wrong when it comes to technology usage. It's not possible. Don't assume that they know what websites to go to and not to go to. Don't assume that they know what to Google and not what to Google. Don't assume that they know that they shouldn't take their phones or their gadgets to their rooms. Don't assume that they know things that they are still children. They have no reason to know. Think about when you were that age. Some of us have 10-year-olds that have actual phones. You can't assume that your children know how to behave on WhatsApp, as an example, or who to let chat with them. A lot of them, strangers chat with them, and they really give them information because they're very open children, and they're not thinking about, oh, this might be dangerous. This is a stranger, So we have to create the rules. For every gadget and device that you give your children, you need to let them understand the importance and the power of those gadgets, and let them know that it can actually have some very, very dire consequences if they do not do certain things and if they don't obey the rules. So please don't make any assumptions. Technology is too powerful a tool for you to make assumptions about. And last but not the least, my contact details, if you would like them. I have my LinkedIn, my Instagram, and my email address. If you want to send me an email, you are very, very free to. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I hope that you've all learned something from my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Absolutely.
That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Foluso. That was amazing. Amazing.
So, okay. Can I say something? Or you want to set questions? You want to read the question, right?
Can you hear me? Oh, sugar. Can you hear me?
Okay,
now we can hear you.
No, yes.
But you were breaking up a bit.
Real quickly. But you can say something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, let me.
Thank you so much for almost reviewing the book, the Tech Conversation Guide. That was really insightful. One of the reasons why can everybody hear me? One of the reasons why we went ahead with this conversation was because I honestly think sometimes parents don't read. And so I wanted us to talk about this conversation. And I think Felicia had done an amazing job pushing that conversation. And I want to say again, if you don't have the tech conversation guide, please get it. If you have it, let it be your manual in navigating the digital space of your children. Really, really important.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Fola. So, well, I guess at the end, you can let them know, for those who don't have it, how they can get it, right?
Okay, okay, we're going to drop we're going to drop the link on the chat room, so you could just go in and get the guide.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you once again, Felicia. That was profound, amazing, so relatable. There's so much we can learn from there. Like I said earlier, as parents, sometimes we want to believe that, our angels are angels, because sometimes, we have to keep. And I love what you said about how some of them have other accounts that they know they can post stuff to that you're not following. They know you're following some certain. So, as much as we like to stalk them, sometimes I'm tempted to stalk, but I have to.
Why
I
not?
always tell my children, look, at the end of the day, I'll do my best and I'll do my bit, as a parent, so and I'll leave the rest to God. So we'll just pray that God guides them. Where we're at our end, God begins with them. All right, so we're going to go to our last speaker, and our last speaker is going to be talking on the subject, how I say, pardon? Okay, how I say authentic.